This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, special guests Nora, Mestrich, and Ash Casper come to talk about why we don't think too much about what teenage girls think, and also our strong feelings about those who share our names.
Woo!
Hi, this is Jess, and this week we are bringing back your favorite specialty segment, Cutie Corner, where my favorite special guest, Cutie-in-Chief, Nora Mestrich, and my favorite Officer of Cute, Ash Casper, join me to deepen and go into further topics that are light, cute, fun, and take it to the next level. Ladies, welcome.
Yay!
Welcome. We're excited to be here.
Housekeeping?
Just a heads up that this episode will contain a few curse words because we'll be quoting some people who have a little bit of a sailor mouth. So if that's not your jam, or maybe you have some children, just a heads up, that's what's be happening in this episode.
Nora, thank you so much for your foresight, your professionalism, something that really is really valued in this segment of the show. Ash, do you have anything for us?
I don't. I'm excited to talk about my topic, but I don't have any housekeeping related to it. But
Okay.
Just get excited, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, you'll have to hold on to your horses.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Hold your horses?
Hold
I think it's
them.
hold your horses, not hold on to your horses.
Hold on to your horses. Because Nora, I believe you're taking us into our first conversation.
I am. As excited as I am for Ash's topic, I am kicking us off. Today, a thing I wanted to talk about is something that I think about a lot, and it's because it's something that I can relate to from growing up and being a fangirl as a teenager, and honestly, even before that. I've always been a boy band girl. I've always been a fangirl. I've always been like heavily invested in not celebrity culture, boy band culture. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
And growing up and being part of that, a lot of the time I was told that my opinion was not considered smart or interesting because of the things that I was interested in and because I was interested in cute boys, essentially. And it's something that I think about a lot because I think teenage girls in particular are really passionate about a lot of things, and a lot of the times their opinions are written off as frivolous because those things can revolve around like cute boys or pretty colors or pretty things in general, and so it's easy to write off those opinions. And when I was thinking about this, I came across this article where Phoebe Bridgers did an interview. It's a few months old. She was talking about a song that she did with one of my favorite bands. For those who don't know, Phoebe Bridgers is a musician. She's an indie rock type singer. She is like kind of up and coming. She's pretty interesting.
Does she have a song people would know?
Her most popular song is probably Kyoto. That's like a very popular one. It's a good one to I think get to know her.
Can you hum it?
Really good. She'd be proud of that. But she contributed vocals to a song by one of my favorite bands, the 1975, which I have talked about on this show before. And if you know me in person, I don't ever shut up about them. Well, you know what? Let me give myself some credit based on my topic. I love them.
Yeah.
And she talks about, in this interview, she talks about how it's easy for critics and for people to write this band off because a majority of their fan base is made up by teen girls or young girls, young women. And she says, hating the 1975, I feel like, is sexist because teenage girls invented that band being famous. Teenage girls invented the Beatles. Teenage girls invented music. You're trying to say that something's stupid just because teenage girls like it. It's fucking insane. And I think this sums it up really well, where I think teenage girls have always been on the cusp of the thing that is big, and they have the power to push something to the front of the cultural zeitgeist, and they're often written off as frivolous or silly for liking those things. And so this leads me to the question that I want to talk about today, which is, why do we have such a hard time trusting the teenage girl's opinion?
This is very interesting, particularly because I don't know about you, Ash, but I definitely have struggled, maybe not with being frustrated that other people don't like a thing that I have liked, but more of feeling embarrassed as a girl for liking a maybe stereotypically girly thing, especially in my youth. I don't know if I have told you about the one time where I was blessed to be offered a ticket when I was like 13 to go see a Hannah Montana concert with special guest the Jonas Brothers, which at the time I was a huge fan of both of those things and did not want to admit that to anyone. Of course I had to say yes, but of course because of my shame, because not supposed to be into that type of thing, even if you're of the appropriate age group. I was like trying to act cool, like trying to act like I wasn't that into it when obviously I was into it, and I'm so pissed now because in time I have grown to not struggle to care about whether or not something is cool to like, but it's too late. I missed my moment. But I guess that's the thing is like, is that like that's the like that guilt thing too is part of this issue, right, Nora? It's not just that like other people have an issue, but that like the person who likes it also has an issue.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me too, when I don't know, I've always been like a boy band girl. Starting when I was like, my mom says like the first music video she remembers me dancing to was Hanson, Mbop by Hanson, and then I was like also like very into the Jonas Brothers from like. Yeah. I found them early. I was like an early stan of the Jonas Brothers, and then I was an early stan of One Direction, and like still am like a huge fan of all those bands. And when I like something, like I like it like hard, like it is like it becomes part of your personality. Yeah, like, it is like my thing. But when I was a teenager, like nobody, I think because it wasn't cool to like One Direction, none of my friends like liked it as much as I did, or like they weren't like hardcore about it, or if they were, they like didn't let on. And I was somebody who like I can't hide that. It's just like it was like a thing that I really liked, and I found solace in online communities. I was like really into Tumblr. Like Tumblr was really like big at the time. I think now it's like Twitter and TikTok are where you can find communities that are similar, but I was like really into One Direction Tumblr, and it was like a thing that I've made friends through it, and I found people who were like as passionate about One Direction as I was, or who liked it as much. But in school or like online with critics talking about music, or like people outside of like the fandom, it was a silly thing, quote unquote, even though both of those bands were huge bands. Like One Direction was a huge band. They dominated the world, they dominated charts, but like they were never taken seriously as musicians, even though they were.
Yeah, this is super interesting. And I'm actually interested, Nora, to like kind of unpack that a little bit more. And I feel like especially in high school, when everybody's super insecure, you're worried about yourself, there is something interesting about finding people who shared like the same interests. And when you have like this community, people, it's kind of like when you're in high school, it's like a guilty pleasure until you can not be guilty about it, right? Yes. Like once you're, oh, you like this also? Cool. I'm obsessed with them. Let's talk about it, right? So I'm interested if that moment ever happened for you in real life, or if those communities really were like an internet community like Tumblr, like you're talking about. And once you were able to kind of find those communities, if you were ever like able to get a little bit more confidence and kind of just unapologetically liking these boy bands that you're really interested in, and if that ever bridged any relationships with people in high school, physical relationships, once you were able to maybe feel a little bit more confident about just the things that you like.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I was also like a One Direction stan into college. I mean, let's be honest, I still am now, but they were still a band when I went into college too. And so I think by college, that's when I was like more comfortable being like, this is one of my obsessions and I love it a lot, And I think there too, like I made friends who were, they were better friends and they understood me more, and they like didn't care so much about like the things, which I think is just true of being in college. Mm-hmm. And so I think once I got there, it was easier for me to just like embrace that as part of my personality. And now as like an adult, I still have obsessions with things, and it is like very easy for me to just fully embrace that and be like, this is me, because now it's kind of like, if you don't like it, then I just don't want to be friends with you. Like, you know, like then you're just like not a person for me. But when I was in high school, it really was online friendships or online relationships that were like forged out of that thing, because like there was a lot of embarrassment about liking something that is like a teenage girl thing. And I don't think that this is like just about music. Like, I think you could probably say this about like TV shows or books or whatever too. But I think that for me was the thing that really stuck out as like, it's not cool for boys to listen to boy bands. And I don't know if this happened to you guys in elementary school, but I remember like people calling the Jonas Brothers gay in elementary school, just to like completely insult them and write them off as like not a masculine thing to listen to or enjoy.
This is where I wonder if a component of it, you know, you'd brought up, at least through the Phoebe Bridgers quote, you know, some assumption around like, is sexism a component of this, that it's like these young girls. But I also think like the young component is also a thing. Like, if we're talking about isms, the discrediting of youth is also like partially a thing. Even that, you know, like young boys and their interest to, you know, I guess I wonder if maybe that is playing a more an even more significant role in this whole thing of just like, you know, I used to be into that when I was young, but like I obviously outgrew it.
Yes, this is something I think is really interesting, because I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but at least when I was in middle school, there was like this competition between all individuals as to like who was into the coolest thing, like the most adult thing. It was like this race into adulthood, and you couldn't just be present and enjoy things that were maybe age appropriate or whatever even that means, right? There was always like, oh, I'm into this. And I felt that especially in high school, there's like indie music and people were like competing over like the most obscure bands. And then even in middle school, it was like, oh, well, I don't watch Disney Channel anymore. I watch whatever. Like, I watch Fox, or I don't know what the other channel is, but like there's people, that's not cool anymore.
Totally. And also the interest in, or taking up a ton of interest in your parents' music tastes as well, I feel like plays a role in that, of like, see, I like music that's really old. And that's because I have the maturity of olds.
Which, that's so interesting too, because that was my life story. Was like, I grew up, I was the oldest of 5, and we were all really close. And so I was like a Disney Channel person for probably too long, honestly, because I was only allowed to watch really what my younger siblings were able to watch.
There you go. And
so then you jump from that to like, okay, well, maybe I'll just glom onto my parents' interests in terms of music, because those are the only 2 things I may be exposed to. And this was kind of pre-cell phone, right? But I'm going to now jump all the way to like oldies. And oldies is really cool, because that's the farthest reaching adulthood that I can kind of get to. And then you kind of, once you're able to figure out what the happy medium is, and actually like start to explore more of those nooks and crannies, especially specific to music taste, which I think is the core identity for at least me and for a lot of people. You're able to kind of figure out the happy medium, and then also still feel nostalgia for the things that you liked when you were a kid and not feel ashamed of them anymore. But
I think a little bit too, there is like the archetype that I felt pressured to play in high school, or like I don't know how many other girls feel the pressure to play, which is like the cool girl, like the girl who like is just like cool about everything, you know, like listens to indie music and like isn't super invested in a lot of stuff. And there is this like performative indifference, I think, that like women are expected to play, because it's like, it's not cool to be obsessed with something, you know what I mean? Like, that's not considered a cool thing, that's considered a dorky thing to be obsessed with. And then when your obsession with something is like cute boys, it's like okay, that's stupid. Like, that doesn't have any meaningful value. That's dumb. And it's like basic pop music. So that doesn't add any value to our world. And so it's not important. But when you don't see, when there's that obsession, is like there's community that comes from it. There is like a sense of something bigger than you. And I don't know how to explain that unless you've been in a fandom like that. But it is exciting to be a part of it and feel like you are like promoting something and making it bigger than what it was, and like making people pay attention to a phenomenon that is happening, which I think you can think back to the Beatles is something similar, right?
Yeah, I also, when you were saying like that like there's a aspirational side to this performative indifference and that obsession is looked down on, I realize that there are certain exceptions to this rule that are fascinating. For instance, like if at a young age your obsession revolves around playing an instrument and you become really good at it, then it's like, oh, it's a calling, you're a young virtuoso. Or like, there are certain things where if you can cultivate from ripeness talent in something, that is valued differently than an interest that people aren't willing to support, right?
Yeah, and then who decides what's an interest and what's a talent, right? Like
right.
An obsession about something could be a talent. Like you've like you're the trivia go-to specific to that that individual.
Or professionally, you could end up in, you could become, maybe you're not an actor, but a producer for entertainment because you're so into shows.
Right.
That's not a great example, but yeah.
I have two thoughts of this. One is nobody questions when boys are really into sports because there is like a value that comes from it. They can, if they're like really obsessed with football, they can play football. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you're really obsessed with football and your room is football themed and you have like football folders for school and you have a football backpack and then you play football and you watch football all the time. And it's like, that's literally no different than like listening to One Direction and getting a One Direction notebook and going to a One Direction concert and like going on Tumblr and looking at One Direction. It's literally the same thing, but there is so much less like conversation around boys who are just really obsessed with sports, which is like a crazy double standard. Also, to your point, Ash, of like, if you're really obsessed with something, like there's a lot of interesting conversation now of people who are like my age who grew up on Tumblr and were like in like the One Direction fandom or whatever other fandom was like happening at the time, and how many of them have followed this like pathway to becoming social media managers or like promoters or something because they've gained all of these skills online. But there's like tons of girls who had Tumblrs, and for those who weren't on Tumblr, a big part of it was like you could customize your theme, and so you could like go in and write all of your own code to change colors and fonts and like add in all of this crazy stuff. And there's a huge overlap between girls who are on Tumblr and girls who like are computer engineers now or like software engineers because they learned code through it, you know? And it's like, that's, yeah, sure, maybe they gain that from having like a fandom Tumblr, but that is like a meaningful life skill that has applied to their adult life now that they wouldn't have gained if they didn't have that interest,
Yeah, not to out my own boyfriend, but he's now a software engineer because back in the day he coded his own Neopets guild.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
See? Exactly.
Sorry, Ryan.
Exactly. Sorry, Ryan. But yeah, I think like it's not a frivolous thing to have an interest like that. Like you never know where it could lead to, and you never know like what it can generate, Like One Direction became one of the biggest bands on the planet because of teenage girls on Twitter promoting the hell out of them and making them the biggest boy band on the planet. Like there's a reason why they got to be that big.
There's a part of me that brings it to like chicken and the egg conversation. It's like, did the boy band come first and like people started getting obsessed with him, or like were girls like were we craving something, right? And like it kind of came out of this obsession of like really needing to kind of like rally around a band.
Yeah.
Similar to like the Beatles. Like I don't know. This is kind of the core of your question, right? Is like teenage girls are pushing culture forward, and we look back at like the Beatles as a transformative period. But whenever you see Beatles represented in TV or in media or whatever, you always have the associated girls screaming because they're so excited about the Beatles, right? Like they're kind of pulled together. And it's sad, I guess, to your point, Nora, that they're written off as like dumb girls, but that's the reason the Beatles were so successful.
Exactly.
Okay, this brings me to a question for your question, Nora, which if your take here is that teenage girls' opinions are not trusted sufficiently, what then are the best teen girl takes right now that people should be paying more attention to?
There's a lot of interesting ones like in fashion. I think Olivia Rodrigo is like a fascinating example of this. I mean, for those who don't know who Olivia Rodrigo is, she is this like rising, like super fastly rising pop star who shocking, am obsessed with. But I think she just turned 18. She was on a Disney Channel show called High School the Musical, the series, which is a spin-off of High School
Whoa,
Musical.
what a name.
I know, crazy. Also, I did watch all of it, and it was very good, and I'm not ashamed to admit that it actually made me laugh. But she was on that, and then through that, she released her first album at the beginning of this year, which, like, the first song, Driver's License, it's a great one to get introduced to her to, but it blew up. It's like the most streamed song ever on Spotify. It was huge on TikTok. Like she like soared to the top of the charts, but she's unapologetically a teenage girl. And her whole first album is just about teenage heartbreak and how sad she is and just how much she feels everything. And she, right now, it drives so many of the trends through fashion and music and, like, culture online, and it's fascinating to watch her and watch how much of the like world and culture is being influenced by her. So I think she is like a fascinating person to watch. I think K-pop is also just like a great case study of this. I mean, like I don't listen to K-pop, but it's like kind of similar to One Direction, where the people who are into K-pop fandom are like hardcore in it, and like they promote the hell out of it and make sure that everybody else is paying attention to it. And so I think those are both very interesting examples of what's happening right now.
Wow.
Your first example brings me to, I don't want to just delay us too much, but your first example brings me to just the importance. Like, when we look to musical artists, we look for connection, we look to feel a feeling, and there's a shared commonality between what a musical artist is singing about and maybe a personal experience that we have had. And teenage girls, I mean, those are the things that we're feeling. And so when a musical artist comes out and talks about heartbreak, when they're actually feeling it at a similar place, like, it actually has a ton of cultural significance, because you're able to feel connected to others who are connected to the song, and you're able to feel connected to the musician. And without that, then we would have a whole segment of our population who maybe feels like cut off from culture, right? Like, you actually need, you need to be connected to feel people have a shared commonality. And this is exactly what you're talking about. It's just like, there's no need to push on to the next stage. So this is cool.
Yeah, totally.
Wow, Nora, if I may wrap,
please.
I think the overall, like, the beginning of this question about the teen girl opinion and its value starts from a very core place in your heart, and I think in our hearts, of just like, why can't I just like a thing, and why does it have to be judged or thought of as lesser than? And it is certainly because there's some baggage there, still is some baggage there, but at the same time, there's a lot of really cool stuff that's going on, like in the music space particularly, be it maybe not exactly in boy band format, but sounds like there's a lot that folks could learn if they just open their minds, ears, hearts, something.
Yeah, mind your hearts.
Yeah, just a mind your heart. Cool. Well, thank you. This was fun. Also, dare I say, a helpful evolution of Cutie Corner itself, embodying this idea of like a thing that on its surface seems like, oh, whatever, that's just going to be a diminutive side thing, but actually is real. Okay, whatever. As a quick interlude, a recurring micro segment, Cute or Not Cute. Ready for this quick rapid fire voting round, folks?
Yes.
So ready.
So ready.
Okay.
I've been missing this.
Cute or not cute, cotton candy ice cream.
Ugh, not cute.
Not cute.
No,
neither.
Ugh.
Flavor, look, both?
Everything.
Both. Everything about it. Yeah.
It's unnatural.
Ugh.
Okay. Big Bird.
Cute.
Cute.
Even the large scale. Oh, well, okay.
Are you scared of Big Bird, Jess? Is that why you're like,
no,
not cute?
I'm just wondering. I could see it either way.
I don't think I've ever seen him in real life. I don't actually know how big he is. I remember scale-wise.
I'll keep an eye out for him in New York.
You gotta go to Sesame Place in New Jersey. Okay. Heelys, cute or not cute?
Not cute. Oh my God.
See, I think they're a little cute. It depends on the person.
Yes, I agree. If you and I had Heelys, Ash, so
Very cute. Yeah. I watch Grey's Anatomy, and there's a doctor on there who is a pediatrician.
Who wears Heelys?
And she will wear Heelys to cheer kids up. She'll Heely around the hallways, and that's very cute.
Huh. When I was in elementary school, my friend had Heelys, and one day she got a giant rock stuck in it, and we had to dig it out with a plastic spoon.
Wait, that brings me to my fourth cute or not cute. Little spoons.
Very cutie.
So cute. But actually, what's funny is the little spoon collections. People who collect spoons. Is that cute in large quantities
That's
of
a great
small
question.
spoons?
Again, depends on the person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
My Aunt Debbie does do this and collects them in honor of the Vander family competitive spoon tournament. So she has like collector's spoons, and then there's a parade of spoons, which I'm pretty sure I will not be able to share through the show, but I might be able to send Alex a clip of her of the audio from the parade of spoons.
Please do.
And it would be really cool if right now the Olympic spoons parade noise is trickling in the background. Really, she's just something. She's the best.
Parade of
Auntie
spoons.
Debbie. Okay, last cute or not cute. Toe rings.
Not cute. No.
Can I just veto it all? Because definitely they're really cute.
Really?
Jess?
Yeah, totally. They're very cute.
Do you wear them?
On occasion when I'm feeling cute. I would highly recommend it. Just
like vacation beach mode, or like just casually in the office.
Don't put them in a box.
Don't put them in a box.
That calls a lot of attention to your feet.
No.
Actually, yeah. I think it probably depends on the feet.
Nora's disgust. It's like, no. Thank you for indulging this. Also, I have to corrections department myself. Why did I say Sesame Place was in New Jersey? It's obviously in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Sesame Place. And for life-size Big Bird. Okay. Back to the show. Ash. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Yay.
Okay.
My question comes about because recently at work, semi-recently in the last 2 weeks, we've been doing a lot of growing. Recently, we hired a project manager. Her name, also Ashley. My name is also Ashley. I go by Ash
It's a revelation. I had no idea.
And I think it's really
Ashley.
strange when people find that out about me, because I've gone by Ash since I went to college, because in high school, there were always like 5 other Ashleys.
Wow.
And I just was craving a little bit of differentiation because it was just confusing, especially in like a math class. There was at least another Ashley, right? So
yes,
it was either I go by my last name, Casper, or I could shorten it. And I kind of went by Casper actually in high school a little bit. And when I went to college, I was like, oh, here's this opportunity to kind of create a new me. And so I just decided freshman year to start going by Ash, and then it's just totally stuck. Funny enough, this new woman who we've hired, she also goes by Ash. Her name is Ashley. She also professionally goes by Ash. And unfortunately for her, when she was hired, everybody was like, oh, no, you can't go by Ash because we already have an Ash. And I felt, and so when I learned about this, one, it's it's kind of nice being the first Ash. But also I feel so badly for her because she has to alter her identity just to be able to fit in within this new workplace because we can't have 2 Ashleys. Yeah. And it brings me to this question, or this thing I'm kind of thinking about, that is one around kind of having to potentially change your identity, right? Your name is a core piece of who you are. It's what people call you. It's what you respond to. And having to change that to be able to work in a workplace, one, is a pretty interesting thing that you have to do. Do you have to do it? Do you not have to do it? I don't know. That's like a side question. We can come to that later, maybe. But my broader question is, and I felt this in high school, is sometimes when you're sometimes pitted against other Ashleys.
Yeah.
This happened to me on a bus. There were two Ashleys, and it was Ashley number 1 and Ashley number 2, and there was like this competition to be the Ashley number 1. And it brings me to this question of why do we have to go to extremes around either being pitted against each other, this competition, or the opposite, where there's maybe like a shared connection between having a shared name because you have shared experiences. Maybe you're treated similarly, but then obviously there's so much nuance. Just because I'm an Ashley doesn't mean I look like them, right? I think Ashley, I mean, not to stereotype, but you kind of picture like a blonde, cheerleader, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you do.
But
you do.
Yeah. So, I don't know. My question is just kind of why do we go to these two extremes? Do we have to? And then maybe we can brainstorm some other ideas for how to solve this problem in the workplace. Because I know we have a lot of Katies. Nora, we don't have a Nora yet, but maybe if we have another Nora, we would have to solve for this. So I'll open it up to the group, but that is my question, my thoughts, my thinking. Interested to hear the group.
It's such a funny phenomenon. I have not met many other Noras in my life, but when I was in kindergarten, there was another Nora, and she was Nora S, and I was Nora M.
No.
And it's still talked about in my family. I don't remember what Nora S looked like, no idea where she is, no idea what she's doing. I moved after that year, so I lost contact with her.
Yeah.
But we still talk about Nora S because it's the only other time I've come in contact with another Nora. And it's so odd how like your name is your identity, and it's weird when somebody else has that same like identity marker as you.
Nora S, if you're out there, you should reach out to
Nora S.
M.
Nora S, if you're out
What
there.
you're up to.
I'm thinking
you
about
a
you.
designer at a boutique strategy consulting firm?
Oh my God, what if she is?
Wild.
She's doing a podcast too right now.
It's interesting, Ash, because I also growing up had I was surrounded by specifically another Jessie. And at the time I was Jessie.
Really?
And if you meet any friends of mine from before a certain year, they will refer to me as Jessie to this day. But in particular, they may even refer to me by full name, Jessie Vander, all at once. And it is in part because my friend Jessie Kim, who now lives in New York, also, like, it was almost as if the name was the whole name all at once as a way to distinguish. And we are very good friends. We were very good friends back then, but the idea that there was like this way of distinguishing that just came super naturally as part of the club that we were both doing was a very interesting solution, I guess, to this challenge. But instead of trying to say like, this is gonna, at the time I was not a Jess, so it was like, well, we'll just resolve on you both having your super long full names together. I don't know how much that can work in a professional setting though, A, and B, it's it doesn't override sort of any underlying expectation that you are supposed to have some kind of relationship, be it either companionate, I think it's companionate, or competitive. It's got to be one or the other.
I actually love that as a solution because it is your name. You're not changing anything.
Yeah,
you're just calling yourself by your first name, right?
Just Ash Casper.
Yeah. And it's actually like, why don't we do that more? Like we have our first name and our last name, we go by our first name just because it's shorter. And it's easier to kind of call out. But like, what if we lived in a world where our names were our first and our last names? And that's how we referred to each other all the time.
I mean, definitely there are cultures, namely like even in China, there's definitely like it's just not that weird to do the full name. If anything, it can be like honoring people to say their full name.
Yeah.
It's interesting thing too when people who have a very common first name then go by their middle name because that's like their distinguishing thing. One of Vincent, my boyfriend's old coworkers, her first name is very, very common, and so she goes by her middle name, which is like much less common, which is really interesting.
Yes.
And I mean, nicknames in general are just interesting, but it's funny when people have a name that's super common and in like an attempt to feel more independent or feel more, not that it's like a bad thing to feel unique, but I think to feel like more like autonomy over self, to choose your more unique name because it feels more distinguishing.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Nora, because in that case, like, it's great if that person, if they have a middle name that maybe is less common, that they have that choice. What I think is really interesting about this Ashley problem is the name being chosen for you. Like, you already called like implicit dibs on Ash, and now poor Ash, other Ash now is other Ash, right? Or
exactly.
or needs to be somehow qualified or changed somehow. That's what's tricky, is like, now what when you don't have a choice over what you are, how you are being distinguished, or if you would want to be distinguished some other way.
Right. Yeah. Like if roles were reversed, I would be really upset going back to Ashley, because I've worked so hard investing in going by Ash. It would be really difficult. And so I feel for other Ash, and we'll connect and we'll come up with a solution. And this is actually now just becoming a brainstorm session for how to deal with my personal issue here.
But it's also interesting because our company has so many Katies. I think we have like 5 Katies. I don't even know how many we have. We have so many.
We don't have 5 Katies, I don't think, but we do have like some variation of that name. Like,
there's like a lot of Katies. Yeah.
We have a lot of Katies, and we also have a freelance Katie that's working on one of my projects right now. And it's interesting because a couple of those Katies have joined this year, and they've just started going by their last names because we had already been calling the Katies that were working here by their last names. And so like by proxy, the new ones, it just get called by their last names. Like, I didn't even think about it. I've just been calling our freelance Katie by her last name because both of them are on. We have 2 Katies on this project, and it's like, she did not ask for that, you know? Like, she doesn't even work here, but it's just like, it's just a thing that has become language at our company to do that because we have so many of them.
I know that is, maybe this is just like a me thing, but I feel like unless there's almost like 2 paths. Either if a person has a name I know they prefer, I do my best to refer to them by that name, because like Katie would otherwise introduce herself as Katie, so I'm going to call her Katie, even though you know that I'm talking about Katie Sadow. But the trouble, there is another tendency of mine, which I have done with my own niece, which is like lean in to a nickname of my own creation as a term of endearment that is specifically reserved for them. And in some instances, this nickname, I can think of 2 other people in my life for whom this nickname has stuck in a more popular setting, which I don't know if that is, I don't know if that's a good thing, unless that person has sort of claimed it as their own. I offered it up and then they could claim it. But the idea of like something just totally unique made for them, in my mind, I don't know whether that's true for everyone, but it feels like another potential solution of like, see, you're special and no one else is going to get it's not a nickname just because it's a nickname. It's one of endearment and connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I love all of this. And that kind of on top of that, my sister is pregnant and is coming up with names for their future child. And we were going through some names that they were liking, and I'm going to just say them because she's not going to say it. But so they really like A names, and so they really want to.
Ash?
No,
you're like, no, it's taken.
Too many Ashes. No, they really like Adriana and maybe call her Adri. But then she's like, well, but if I'm going to call her Adri, I should just call her Adri. And then, but then my opinion is like, I really appreciate a little optionality, a little flexibility in your name, to be able to maybe go by something a little bit different later in life, to go, or you could still go by your nickname. And I don't know, it just gives you a little bit of flexibility. And so that's my camp. But she's kind of the opposite, where she's like, if I'm going to call her something, I should just call her that, you know?
I think I side with you, Ash. Also because the question that I get asked a lot, which is like, oh, so is that short for Jessica? I'm like, yes, but I guess it could not be. And
no, I'm just Jess.
Similar to, this happens I don't know why, but maybe this is particularly in college when people find out that I'm Jewish, they'll be like, oh, did you have a bat mitzvah? And I weirdly have to be like, no. and now I have to explain myself somehow. So there's something of like, oh, that's like, it's, people just assume that it is a short version of a longer thing. I guess my mindset, though, obviously you can, like, anyone can choose whatever they like, but like, it is that person is going to receive that question all of their lives, and it may or may not be a bummer to them.
As somebody with a 4-letter name, I was always really jealous as a kid of people who had longer names who could just like change it up whenever they wanted. Yeah, I never have like nicknames. My like parents have like affectionate names that aren't like nicknames, you know, that I've had since I was like a baby. But I've never had nicknames. Somebody once tried to start a nickname for me where they would call me No, and I was like, absolutely not. Let's kill that one right now. But like both of my siblings have longer names and then like nicknames. So like Franny, my sister, goes by, her name is Margaret Francis, but she goes by Franny. And then Charlie, my youngest sibling, their full name is Charlotte, but they go by Charlie. But there's like so many things that you can do with those names. Like Franny could be Fran or Maggie or Margaret or like whatever she wanted.
Or Pearl, which is the translation in Greek.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Wow, maybe
you have to tell her that. Maybe she can start going by Pearl.
Franny, if you're listening, start going by Pearl. But I was always very jealous of that. And my mom always talks about, my mom doesn't have a middle name. She just has a first name and a last name. And she always talks about how she was always really jealous of people who had middle names because she felt left out that she didn't have one. And so my siblings and I all have 2 middle names. We have like a middle name and then we have her last name as a middle name. And so we can kind of like choose, I guess, what we want to be or how we want to go or how, if we want to use all 4 names, if we want to use 2 names, so if we want my siblings can choose a nickname and the last names. They have a lot of options.
Wow.
I had a professor in college who, him and all of his siblings, their middle names were letters. So it was like just a letter. Yeah. And one of his brothers goes by just a letter, which I was like, that's cool. So interesting. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. And as just, I mean, some people have kind of like themes for how they name their children. And I felt like that was a really sophisticated theme. Sometimes when it's like rhyming or I don't know, it's like, okay, all right, we get it.
We're all K's like cute. The Kardashians.
Yeah, exactly.
I did know somebody in high school whose family considered the acronyms of all of the names when, you know how when put together, what do each of the letters spell? And they all had to be something that could be pronounced aloud, which was really interesting.
My dad's middle name is Richard and his first name is Keith. And so he gets a lot of jokes that are like, oh, Keith Richards?
Keith Richards.
Like, haha, no.
Never heard that.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, my name, so I've heard it constantly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ash, is there a personal request that you have? Like, what do you want the answer to be in this Ash situation?
I want us both to be able to just go by Ash. Like, I think I'm in the same camp as you, Jess, where you introduce yourself as something, we should just make it work. And there's going to be some awkward calls where there's going to be some clarifying. But luckily, we're both in different positions. And so hopefully asks directed at me versus directed at her are going to be very different. And so I don't think there's going to be that much confusion. Maybe there will be, but I don't know. But the other thing that I think is interesting about this is it's not just my decision. It's not just her and I. It's also how everybody else refers to us. And they're like, oh, that's too confusing. We have to say something else. So it's kind of the design team's decision, I think. Maybe we need to have an internal design team. Yeah. That's a lot of power.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if we had a company conversation about names? We just put it out there. That would be
interesting.
We should, Alen, if you're listening, we should talk about this. It's really important for the naming future powwow of our email addresses.
I mean, maybe I need to change my name. Maybe that's the solution. Maybe that's actually what it is we need to brainstorm another name for me.
Okay. Well, listeners, send in your names for Ash based on her voice alone. Based on her voice, what do you think her name should be?
Right. You could also, it's like, interesting. Before I knew you were Ash, I thought you could also be a Georgina. No, but
Georgina. Wow. I could go by my middle name. My middle name is Jean.
No way. Really?
Yeah. Jean is a cool name.
wow.
I could start going by Jean.
That'd be
really mix it up.
hilarious if you started going by that.
Cat would be so confused because my partner has known me since high school, so he called me Ashley. Now he just got on board with Ash. If I change it again, he's going to be really upset.
I don't even know what to call you anymore. I hope you figure this out, and I hope we can support you in whatever you would like to be called in a way that retains your sense of self.
Yep.
Oh, and if you'd like, anyone is welcome to call me Jessie. I'm open.
I'm into it. But
Okay.
to me, now you're a Jess.
I know.
Yeah.
Can't be.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's just locked in. Well, imagine. Hi, this is Jessie Vander. You just can't say
You should just
slide
slip that in another time with Joey and Aaron and see what they say.
Hi, this is Jessie.
This is what
They'll
a,
be like,
this is what
"I
a
don't
Jessie
get it."
sounds like.
Yeah.
Critical Nonsense is a SYLVAIN production. Brought to you by Cutie Corner, obviously. I would like to thank our special guest hosts, Nora, not No Mestrich, and Ash Jean Casper. I'd also like to thank typical but currently not here hosts Joey Joseph K. Meyer and Aaron Apo Powers. Have to thank also sound engineer Francisco Alejandro Contel, also programming coordinator Leslie Jacobs, or as I just like to call him, Leslie Jacobs. Production help Sarah X. Gilbert, and as always, thanks a lot. Special thanks. What do we have?
Special thanks to Nora S. I hope you're doing well out there.
Really wish you well.
Similar vein, thank you to all the Ashleys out there. All the Ashleys in my life. All the Ashleys, Ashes, and ASHLEIGHs in my life.
all of the spellings. Actually, to that, of course, I also must thank Jessie Kim. Special shout out. You have to hang out soon if you're listening to this. Also to another Jess from Philly who I competed in a cookie competition with once, and I was very concerned about losing to her reindeer cookies because they were really cute. And I was like, no, I'm the only Jess from Philly who bakes, and I won, but I was very afraid. Anyway, that day Wait,
on that, what was your submission? What was your baking submission?
They were hot cocoa cookies, so double dark chocolate with floating marshmallows on them. And it was a particularly good batch that day, but it was neck and neck. Her designs were really lovely, and I wish I could have seen past the name overlap to really get over myself and accept that more cookies. There's always, the more cookies.
There's always room
merrier.
for more cookies.
That's right.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Jess in the future, who I will be asking to bring those cookies into the office at some point.
Special thanks to those cookies being served to me. Thank you.
That's funny because one of my special thanks was Jessie. So thank you. This is a double whammy of special thanks.
So many thank yous. I would like to thank Sesame Place, a unique theme park that I did not give enough credit to earlier on the show in brief passing. Have either of you been?
No.
Honestly, as an adult, I still bet it's pretty cool because
I bet.
a theme in a theme park, like Hershey Park, also pretty fun, but Sesame Place, especially as a kid, you can hug Cookie Monster and you're like a little bit icked out because who knows what's hidden in those fluffs, those blue fluffs.
Yeah. Also, adults should be allowed to go to those things without judgment, but maybe that's a topic for another episode
day
of Cutie
Yeah,
Corner.
and also just maybe a wider variety of rides for different folk.
Yeah.
This is something Disney has really figured out. They have the
You can't
volume.
just be thrill all the time as an adult, Sometimes a theme hits it.
Sometimes
Actually,
we want more
one
themes.
might argue one might argue as an adult, I want less thrill. I want very little.
I have enough stress in my life.
We've diverted from special thanks, but
I'm sorry. Any other special thanks?
special thanks to my doppelganger I had in college. I may not have a lot of people who have the same name, but I did have a girl who looked exactly like me. So hope you're also doing well out there, girly.
I would like to give a special thanks to my Hydro Flask for keeping me hydrated all the time. This was on last time, but it keeps my voice from cracking on the podcast, so thank you.
And I'd also like to thank Nora for closing us out with a string of curse words that she owes us from her caveat earlier. Nora, take it away.
Parents of children, time to turn it off.
Just
anybody who's sensitive to curse words, time to turn it off. I'm not going extreme, but you'll get the gamut. Hell, the end. The end of this podcast. This podcast is over. It's the end. Goodbye, you fucking lovely people. I literally forgot curse words. I was like, I don't remember any now.
That's the only one we know.